Hey guys, it is part two of the interview with my mom. I think we left off, we were talking about uh, when you noticed that I was drinking and using drugs. And, we had talked about how you had come home and caught me partying with my friends and stuff. What are some other things that you noticed about that time? Like, with my drinking? Like, how did I act and stuff like that?
Um, Again, you were you had become very distant from us. Um, there were times when you would come in and you would be all talkative and want to sit down and tell us stuff, but I have a feeling that it was during some of those times that you were probably had been drinking or doing something else. Um, but other times you would be really withdrawn, very, very moody, would get angry easily, that type of thing. But some of that's typical with teenagers too.
Yeah,
So,
of course I know that. Teenager, not be a teenager anymore. So when I was a teenager, I also was in a rehab facility.
well, we did. We knew that you were getting into trouble, so we did several things, attempts to try to bring you back around. One thing we did was we pulled you out of your school, um, and we put you in a new school. I don't know; it was a private school. I don't know whether that was good, bad, or indifferent at that particular time, but I mean, we were desperate to try to turn things around with you. Um, One night when you were, I don't know if you were drunk but you were under the influence of something. You became so out of control that I took you to the emergency room, and from there you got put into a facility that for rehab. And I don't even recall how long you were there. Do you remember?
3 months.
So, and they did your school and they worked with you and all. And
I had to do I think it was like 2 months. I couldn't see anybody, and then the last month they started letting me like come home and stuff. And you had to bring me back. And of course, when I got back there, I got drug tested, back to the rehab. How old I was then? I think
it probably 15, 16, somewhere around in there. And additionally, we also did some family counseling. I don't know if you remember that or not. Yeah, we did some family counseling, and we tried to work through some things as well with that. See if we could turn it around.
Um. So after my you know, all the stuff that I went through in my what did that make you feel like? All of the stuff that was going on.
Well, I found it was devastating. Obviously, I mean, here was this my child um, that I had and I had been with since he was a baby, and he there was so much change in him, and it was just devastating. And then I started thinking about, well, what have I done wrong? What mistakes did I make that has led you to be in this position? And I
Yeah,
blamed myself for a lot of the things that you were going through.
I've got the same worry myself. Because I really think that are genetically predisposed to. I don't know if necessarily to be alcoholics, but for the alcohol to affect you in a certain way. Where I know I've heard a lot of scientists talk about this, and not necessarily. It's the way that your body metabolizes the alcohol. for instance, there's a guy named Jordan Peterson. Have you ever heard of him before?
Mm-hmm.
Psychologist out of Canada or a psychiatrist, one or the other. But he talks about how people that if you get like really energetic when you drink, and because alcohol is a downer. So if a downer is one of those drugs that gets you hyped up and excited, and you get a bunch of energy from it, he says you better watch out because like you are like so set up to become an alcoholic because the alcohol affects you differently than most people. Where normal people that drink, or I wouldn't even say necessarily normal people, but people that drink that get tired from alcohol, and it actually works as a depressant for them and brings them down and makes them sleepy, don't tend to be alcoholics as much as people who drink and it gets them wound up, which was exactly what it was like for me. Whenever I drank, I didn't get sleepy until I just got so intoxicated that I couldn't stay awake anymore. Uh, but I would get wound up, and it would give me a ton of energy. Really worked for me to as a painkiller. I've always had a lot of problems with my legs and my feet, stuff like my back, because I've worked on my feet my whole entire life, and I've had a lot of back issues, leg issues that hurts. Walk around on hard concrete floors or tile all day long. You know what that's like. I mean, it really puts a lot of pressure on your legs, and I would drink, and the pain would go away. And there were multiple reasons that I drank for, but one thing was definitely to escape reality. I think I had a lot of things from my teenage years, childhood that I was still trying to. I think I was trying to forget about it and trying to just drink myself away from that instead of having to work through it. Because I've been through a lot of counseling. I've talked to a lot of people, and the only thing I was ever really receptive to it. I thought I knew better. I thought that they were just there to make the money. Uh, they were just, they're paying a lot of money just to talk to somebody who didn't know anything about what was going on with you. And I still do believe that a lot of times that anybody who's in addiction therapy or anything like that, I really believe that whoever that is that's in that role, I think it really is important for that person to have been an addict themselves or an alcoholic, because there's really no way for you to understand what it's like, because you've never been in that position. So there's no way for you to wrap your head around what that experience is like for that person. You don't have the same amount of empathy for somebody if you've never had that experience. You just don't understand how hard it really is when you're addicted to a substance like that. Like I said, I went to counseling and talked to all those people, and I just don't think I was ever receptive to it. I just didn't believe in it. I didn't think that it was ever going to work out, so I never wanted to give it a shot. But ever since I've gotten sick, I haven't spoken with any therapist or anything, but I've done a lot of self therapy and a lot of reflecting and done a lot of thinking, and doing these videos has helped me out a lot. It's really made me, dig down and really think about causes. I drank. I've had
How
to
you
work.
got where you are.
Yeah, I've had to work through a lot of that stuff. Um, I don't want to get too far off the topic here. So we already talked about what kind of help that you tried to get from me. Was there anything else that you did? I did go to AA.
Yeah, you did that
I
too.
went to NA. Those were all, some were court ordered, all the pot. I've talked about that before, that process. They made me go on a tour at a jail one time, prison. That didn't work for me at all. I'm not going to say I wasn't afraid when I went there, because I was. That did scare the living what out of me. I mean, they literally took us into a prison, and they made us hold hands with each other. So the guys all had to hold hands, and then they walked us through, and then you got these guys holding onto the bars, screaming at you. You. It's just like that show, Scared Straight or whatever. It was just like that. You got guys reaching through the bars trying to grab at you, and they probably weren't going to do anything. Now looking back on it, those guys were just trying to scare us, so we wouldn't get in trouble. But I don't think that really helped. That age, I thought, that I was invincible and nobody could touch me. Later on in life, found out that that wasn't true. But I was a very cocky kid too. Thought that I was invincible. I really did. I mean, you saw the kinds of stunts I would pull as a young kid, climbing up trees. And,
Climbing out windows.
oh yeah, like that night. I used to sneak out. My parents have a 2-story house, and I would tie bed sheets together, climb out of the window. I would tie them to the bedpost and climb out of the window to get away, to go out and party at night. One time coming home, and there's a bed sheet hanging out the window, and it was like 5 a.m. or something. Dad had to get up early that morning for work, and I guess he heard me out there trying to climb up the rope or the bed sheets, but I was too drunk or whatever to get up it. He came out there and caught me hanging, and it was a porch just like this, and I'm hanging right there from the corner. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I'm just hanging there, like I'm busted, but that's kind of stupid stuff I would do. Um, we talked about what kind of help you got for me. How did all that work out?
Well, obviously, it didn't work well, and I think a lot of it is somebody who was in your situation who was using um, substances. Unless you're ready, unless you see the reason that you need to stop, it's all the talk in the world. Everything you try to do is not going to make a difference.
Talk about that. So you're ready to stop. That you're not going to quit for anybody. It doesn't matter what it is. I had so many people talk to me, try to talk to me about my drinking. Please quit. It's causing damage. Listen, until I was ready to stop, there was nothing. How did you think I was going to turn out as an adult? Going from those teenage years, I guess around like 18, 19 years old. How did you think that was all going to play out? Because you knew my past with addiction and stuff, but where did you see me going from that point forward before you knew what happened?
So, to be honest with you, when you were younger and we were going through all of that, my fear was that you might not make it to adulthood. I was scared to get that phone call in the middle of the night that you had been out drinking and had a car accident or got into some trouble, and that was my biggest fear. But then after you met your wife, um, and I knew how she felt about drinking and and substance use. I was hopeful that your life was going to turn around, and that you for a while there it did.
Yeah.
For a while there, you were working solid. You had a baby. Um, Things seemed to be kind of falling into place, and you were becoming a responsible adult.
Yeah, I've talked about that a lot of times. That I drank and I drank beer through my 20s, but it really wasn't that bad. I worked all the time. I would have a couple beers,
Here and there.
but it wasn't like an everyday. And I didn't get sloshed every time I drank either. It would be 3, 4 beers, and at that point in my life too, I would get drunk off 3 or 4 beers, depending on if I had food in my stomach or something like that. But and I still, like I said, some I would just grab a tall beer on the way home from school, from work or something, and that would be what I would have, just one tall beer or 2 beers at night. And Really didn't become a problem until later on, where it really started getting out of control. But when did you notice that my drinking was?
Oh gosh. It became obvious when every single family get together that we had, you were intoxicated. And then when I would try to talk with you about it, you would say, "Oh, it's just because it's Christmas. Oh, it's just because it's Thanksgiving." I'm not like that all the time,
Yeah.
and I wanted honestly to believe you, but it became concerning that even if we invited you over for a cookout, you came in and your eyes were red, your face was red, and sometimes you were mean. You would say ugly, ugly things.
Yeah.
So um, it was, that's when we knew that, you know, maybe things were getting a little out of hand.
Um, what did you do to try to help me, or try to do?
Well, obviously, we tried to talk with you about it, but at that point in time, you were not ready to hear it, and you would just get angry with me for saying anything.
Talk to my wife about it. And what did y'all talk about if you did?
We talked, but with your wife, obviously, she's your wife, and she wasn't going to say anything negative about you. If anything, I feel like she tried to protect you. Um, our conversations in regards to it were really quite surface.
What do you mean by that?
Um, she wasn't going to tell me how bad it was. She wasn't going to let on because she was loyal to you.
Ask her direct questions like that, or uh, was it just like a brief conversation where y'all kind of like danced around the idea, or
It was probably a lot of like dancing around. I would try to discreetly ask a question, and the answers that I got were, you could tell she wasn't going to, divulge what was going on in your home. So I didn't push it any further.
so when did you know that I was a full blown put two and two together?
I didn't put two and two together until the night that you called me and said, "Mom, I'm really, really sick." And I said, "What do you mean?" And you said, I can't stop vomiting and I'm vomiting blood. And I said, "Well, why aren't you at the hospital?" You said, "We're waiting for your older daughter to get home so that you could get to the hospital." And me being a nurse knows that when you're vomiting bright red blood, that's not good. I said, "No, no, you're going now." So I came over here and got you and took you to the hospital. And as we sat in the waiting room together and you were vomiting over and over and over again, bright red blood, I knew that we were in trouble. I knew it was bad.
So what do you remember about the night when I went to the hospital for the first time? You talked about the fact that you came and got me. I remember that. I mean, if she had come home that day, 'cause what had happened was I had been sick for like 3 or 4 days, but refused to go because I'd never wanted to go to the doctor at the hospital. I remember the day that I originally got sick. I'd woken up that morning just like every other day and started throwing up. That was a normal thing for me. But later on that day, I started throwing up black stuff, and I didn't know what was going on. But I thought maybe because I drank some Coke, that maybe that's what it was. And that went on for a couple days, and I could not keep anything down. Water down, I couldn't keep Sprite or anything like that down. But I couldn't keep it down at all. It went on for a couple of days, and the last day, wife had gone to work and begged me to go to the hospital that day, and I told her, no, 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 I think I'm gonna be okay. I said I thought I'd eaten something wrong, and then She came home from work that day. She had put a trash can beside the bed for me before she left that morning. Gave me a bunch of stuff to drink and everything. And when she got home, I was so ill that I couldn't even lean over the bed anymore to throw up in the trash can. It was covered in vomit. And it was all over me. It was all over the bed. I just laid there and threw up all over myself because I was so weak I couldn't even lean over anymore. At that point, I'd lost so much blood, I wasn't aware that I'd been bleeding internally for days. And my hemoglobin, I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was like 4 or something like that.
Low. It was very low.
Then you came and got me to the hospital, and we went in, waiting in the waiting room. I begged you to please give me something.
And as soon as you drank it, it came right back
up. And they gave me one of those little bags, and we waited in the emergency room for a couple hours, I think, waiting to get back there. I was so ill. I was in a wheelchair. I had throw up all over me at that point. I'd actually changed my clothes into clean clothes before we left, and I'd thrown up all over myself in the hospital. And then they finally took me to the back, and then I remember the doctor walking in the room. I remember them bringing in a bunch of like X-ray equipment and all kinds of. They started doing X-rays on me, and the doctor came in the room and he said, "You got a lot of stuff wrong with you, and I don't know if you're gonna make it through this or not, but we're gonna do our best to save your life." He told me that my blood sugar was 1100. Said, "I don't understand how you're even still awake right now."
I remember saying, "You're kidding." And he said, "No, I'm not." And I knew the doctor because I worked at that particular hospital. So I knew the doctor very well. And when he told us that, I was like, "How?" And then it just kept rolling from there. The other thing I do remember him saying to you, I remember him asking you how much you drank, and you told him a handle. I didn't have any idea what that meant. And he looked at you and said, "If you continue drinking, you will die."
There's a lot of that I just don't remember because I was just
So
sick.
sick.
I mean, I was completely out of it, and then that first week in the hospital, I don't remember anything at all. Nothing. I don't remember 1 minute of that first week. All I remember was going to the hospital, and then pretty much from I remember laying there in the bed, and they had already done the X-rays and all that stuff. And they had taken a bunch of blood, and the doctor had already came in and told me that I was in the pancreatitis, and I was diabetic, obviously. Other problems he said that I had going on. I had internal bleeding going on, and they told me they needed to go ahead and give me blood transfusions. Started doing that, but then I don't remember. I guess the drugs that they had me on. Withdrawal. Do you have any idea what drugs they were giving me during that?
Oh, you get Ativan when you're going through withdrawal.
Ativan.
Mm-hmm. And but you were really actually going through withdrawals at that time too. So that's why they have like what they call they call it a CWA scale, and basically what they do is they look at what your behavior is like at that particular time. Like, are you shaking? There's like different things that they look at, and then they determine how much Ativan to give you. And they had you on that scale. They were following it like an algorithm, is what it is. And so you were getting that while you were there. But your confusion, the tremors, you had all of that for a while, and it was really quite scary.
Did I have called when the totally slip my mind right now, but fusion with the levels. Did I have that when I was in the hospital that first time?
You did, yes. And then they started giving you KX. No, they gave you KX-Lite.
Like that.
And it makes you go to the bathroom so that
to
you
get rid of the ammonia.
Yeah.
So my liver functions.
They said, but surprisingly, your liver numbers looked okay. It was your pancreas numbers that were so bad in your blood work.
Well, they were wrong about the liver numbers. Out later.
Yeah.
which was a huge surprise because that hospital had basically told me that my liver was okay. And I was like,
Exactly.
so what had happened, I had gone to the hospital and spent 2 weeks in there. The first week, I guess I was going through withdrawal, and they
Right.
had me on the Ativan, which I remember my wife telling me later on that she was really upset because I was really intoxicated from the Ativan, I guess. I was slurring my words.
Sure.
That might have been from the confusion as well.
That's true.
But I was slurring my words. I didn't know what was going on. I have no recollection of that first week in the hospital at all, none whatsoever. And then I remember because they moved me. I was in ICU, and then they moved me from there up to like the 5th floor or something after that.
That's correct.
And then when I went up there, I guess they pulled me off the Ativan that last week because then I started to remember stuff.
Right.
And I remember I slept a lot when I was in there. I was always asleep, and then I would, when I would wake up, there was always people in the room. A lot of the stuff that happened in there, I don't know if it was real, and I've never really asked anybody. Excuse me, like I think I remember like a preacher coming in there and seeing me at some point. That might have been a hallucination. I don't know. There were a lot of people that I remember coming to see me, and I don't know if they actually really did or not. But I've never asked anybody. Never have even discussed it with anybody. But they were like, I remember people coming to see me. I don't know if they actually came.
There were people, because I worked at the hospital, and my job at that particular time was in a position where I interacted a lot with administration. There were people from administration that were coming in and out. Now maybe you confuse somebody from there as a minister. I don't know. If there was a minister in the room, I wasn't present at that time.
I'm not. I just think praying over me.
It's totally possible.
I don't know, but I do remember that second week of being in the hospital. I remember my wife coming up there and seeing me up there and seeing me before she went to work in the morning, and she would come see me on lunch break. She'd come back up there at night and see me. She'd bring the kids. I remember all that. I remember you coming up there. I remember Dad coming up there. I remember my brother coming up there. But all that happened, and then they basically, said, "Okay, you need to go see these specialists."
Right.
And they told me your liver numbers are okay. They said they're off, but they're not bad.
Correct.
And so I'm thinking I'm fine. Like I had a bout of pancreatitis. My liver number, thank the Lord, is okay. I might actually be able to turn this all around. I found out I was diabetic. I knew I had to go see an endocrinologist, start dealing with all that stuff.
And that was all in May.
It was the end of May,
Yep.
but it was it. I got out of the hospital in June.
Right, right.
I went into the hospital May 16th. The day I went into the hospital, and then 2 weeks. So it was right at the end of May when I got out of the hospital. It might have been like a day or two, over 2 weeks that I was in there. So I got out of the hospital, but I do remember the last night that I was in the hospital. I remember I had that traveling nurse that was there. And you remember me getting really upset about that traveling nurse I had that night?
Mm-hmm.
A traveling nurse that night that I had come into the room and had told me. I was laying in the bed. I was really stoked because I was going to get to go home the next day. And I'd been in the hospital for over 2 weeks at this point. I was ready to go home. And she came in there that night and was administering me my medication and everything. And said, "You know that you've got ascites, right?" I was so upset because she was telling me that I had ascites, and I was like, "How dare you sit here and tell me what's going on? You're not a doctor, and you're wrong." And I didn't believe her, and I didn't want to believe her. I come to find out later on that she was probably right.
Probably, yeah.
Because I did have fluid on my stomach
after
I got out, but we were thinking that it just came from
being in the bed.
Being in the bed, the amount of fluids I was being administered, and all that stuff, because I was really dehydrated. I had tons of blood transfusions that time I was there. I mean, there was a bag of blood on me for a couple days. They were pumping blood in me. I do remember that. Like I said, so then I was in the hospital, and then got out and went and saw my endocrinologist. I took 1 week off of work after I got out of the hospital, and because I was still really sick, still I was just really tired. I didn't feel good, but a week later, I went right back to working again.
Yes.
I was excited, and I hadn't drank in almost a month at that point, and I was starting this new life now, and I knew I wasn't ever going to drink again. I wasn't, because I wasn't going back to that ever again. The doctor told me, drink again. That's it. You're not going to live it through it again. And I had made up my mind that was it for me. With that said, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video here. Um, we're at 30 minutes right now, and like I said, we're gonna go ahead and continue to film. I'm gonna stop the video and just make it easier for me for my editing. But we're gonna go ahead and stop this, and I'm gonna quit it, and we're gonna pick right back up again. So you'll see this video on tomorrow's video. So thank you once again, guys, for watching today. I really appreciate it. And this next one, we're really going to start going into depth about what happened with me when I found out that I was really ill. I got sick again. And then we're going to go into the questions that you guys had for me as well. So thank you so much, guys. I love y'all so much. And until tomorrow's video, y'all have a great day.
Bye.